Hello and welcome to the special show Future of Tech that we're bringing you from the day 2 here at the NASSCOM Tech and Leadership Forum. We do have a power-packed show lined up over the next 30 minutes, but the big crowd puller, the big highlight of NTLF every season is the leadership panel that really sees top leaders across industries sit down and discuss the impact of technology on their business and really the relevance of expanding the client scope. This time, ET Now's executive editor Supriya Srinath was in conversation with Salil Parekh, the MD and CEO of Infosys, Varun, MD of Britannia Limited, and Rishad, Premji, the Chief Technology Officer at Wipro. They did discuss a wide range of issues from the tech impact on businesses and the top leadership lessons to take away. Let's listen into this all-important panel.
There are two elements to that, that answer from me. One is, there are disruptions that our clients are facing. And for us, that's critical to understand, given the large set of incumbents we work with, how those disruptions are affecting those sectors. And then with our own business, there is disruption coming, and disruptions coming typically in faster ways through the gig economy. It's coming through AI toolkits that are disrupting how our business works. And it's coming through products that many times take certain elements of services into play. So the way to answer your question, to address those, is usually the disruption that you've not thought about is the one that gets to you. And the only way to be aware of these things is really a little bit of experimentation on a regular basis to see where things are going. When you're a large enterprise, you can see some of these disruptions coming, and today it's fairly common to talk about various trends in that market. But if you think about 5G and how that's going to disrupt whole sets of industries, that's the next disruption that's on our horizon. Uberization and Amazonization is behind us, meaning people understand how that disruption works today. But the 5G disruption, as one example, is going to change so many different industries because of the scale of impact that it could have. Within our business, the gig economy or way of approaching is essentially because the millennials have a different way of looking at how services businesses work. And for that, it's more understanding the nature of how millennials want to work as opposed to how our business is disrupted. So different ways of looking at it, fewer things, and experiment a little bit.
Talking about this, you want to add to what he said? And a quick question, if I may also put in. Talking about disruption of all the changes, and I'm really going to draw upon your personal experience right now. In which situation, whether it's business models, whether it's tech disruption, whether it's regulation, can the leader really control variables?
I think, look, what I was going to add, maybe it answers the question
Sure.
as well, Supriya, which I think the disruption that at least we worry about most is how can we disrupt ourselves as a company and in mindset and behavior, right? So how can we move from being conservative to being more risk-taking? How can we learn from failure faster? How can we be much more comfortable with uncertainty? How can we make decisions with ambiguous situations and finite information? And so how do you drive that whole behavior of thinking inside of the organization? And that's a huge, huge focus for us. So one of the things we've done as an example is we appointed a global culture officer a few years ago. And the whole objective of that was really how can we drive this change of mindset inside of the company very, very strongly with support top down. And it's early days, but I think it's having the right traction. So that's one component. Tied to that is then how do you think about doing things differently inside of the organization, right? So how do you build a startup kind of culture inside the company, which is very different, by the way, than a culture of innovation. A culture of innovation, lots of large organizations have done very, very successfully for very, very long. But driving a mindset of a startup is very different. And so how do you bring that kind of thinking into the organization as well? It's something you've got to sort of be very systematic about and stay with. And we're early days, but I think starting to see some semblance of success.
You make an important point that startups are very different from, the culture of startups is very different from the culture of innovators. The common perception is that organizations and corporations take a longer time to move. They don't have the hustle and bustle that a startup has, and which is why are you caught in a time warp and all of that. Varun, the speed of a disruptor, many people believe, can sometimes be not at the same page or can be at a mismatch of what a culture of the organization can be. Like Rishad said, appointing a culture officer perhaps to drive the change, but how do you see balancing the two?
So we were having a discussion just before this session, and the discussion was about this. I treat myself as the culture officer in the organization. And I was telling Rishad, just before this session that probably, I've been working for 30 years, but I think I just thrive in startups. Even within the large organizations that I've worked in, I've always ended up in situations where I've been handling businesses which were either startups or turnaround businesses, and I just enjoyed it. And I think unknowingly, as I came into this large organization called Britannia, I think I brought that culture in, and might not be in an organized way. I would like to do it in a much more organized way. But truly, I think we have been able to bring a little bit of a change. I won't say that our journey is over, because the journey is never over in these, culture building exercises. I think some of these things which used to be the law, so to say, for companies, for example, scale will give us profitability, right? They still hold, but scale is not enough for you to, be a cutting edge as far as products are concerned.
Moving away from those top Indian voices to global voices now, the impact of technology across industries has been widely debated. The role of AI, the fact that AR, VR is also really becoming mainstream. Now, let's really listen into two powerhouse as far as talent on technology is concerned. Vala Afsar, the Chief Digital Strategist at Salesforce, and Paul Daugherty, the Chief Tech and Innovation Officer of Accenture, discuss about issues around trust deficit as far as this new age technologies are concerned, and what should industries, startups really look at while they're launching their businesses. This is this interesting conversation.
The biggest challenge, I think that the challenge of our generation, and the reason I'm an optimist on technology, but a cautious optimist, is because of the big problem we have, which is preparing people for the future. And I'm not convinced, and I'm actually pessimistic that we're doing the right things currently. So one of the things we did when we wrote the book is decided that the profits aren't going to Accenture, they're not going to me and my co-author. The profits are all going to nonprofits who are focused on mid-career reskilling, so reskilling those who are displaced from jobs. So we think that's the big challenge that's getting the least attention now, that we really need to get on top of, because if we want a world where we destabilize more than we are, if we want more yellow vests and Brexits and issues that we're having in the US and other countries around the world, then the way to get more of that is by increasing the instability and leaving people less prepared for the future. And we've got to do more to prepare, take accountability in our own companies to invest in the learning and training, and do more in our communities to invest. So we're donating all the proceeds. But so back to, that was a long-winded diversion from your question. The next book.
There is a next book.
Well, I've got a lot of ideas. I've got a fiction book I like. I read a lot of science fiction. So there's a science fiction angle on this that's interesting. But the thing we're doing a lot of research on, if you want to see where the book might go, we just published a paper in Harvard Business Review last month that got a very good reaction. And the article was talking about why big data might not be the future. And we're very conditioned to the idea that this is all about data. And many people, we need to change the mindset a little bit on that for two reasons. One is there's a phrase that I've been guilty of saying a lot, which is data is the new oil, data is the new gold. That's a common phrase to use.
Don't like that.
I've stopped saying it. I kind of went public in Davos and said we got to stop saying that, because it leads to if you think data is gold and oil, you're going to exploit it and mine it. And I think that was the digital era was about exploiting information. And I think the post-digital era is about this trust that we talked about. And I think the right way to think about data is not gold, it's not oil. Almost every piece of data is a part of a person. It's a part of an individual. It reflects individual behavior. And if that's your mindset on data, I think you're going to take better actions. That's one thing we talked about in this article. The other thing we talked about in the article is that big data is great, and machine learning techniques that rely on big data are great for many problems. You couldn't solve speech and natural language understanding. You couldn't solve machine vision to a sufficient degree of accuracy without big data fueled machine learning techniques. There's a lot of problems that are better solved by small data. And the branch of AI, we've done some research done some studying on research papers that were produced. For about 10 years, the research papers were primarily around neural networks and machine learning, and around which fed big data techniques. And we had some breakthroughs, like Jeff Hinton's paper on backpropagation and things like that, that fueled the advances in big data, enabled deeper neural networks and things. If you look recently at what's happening, we're seeing more papers now in symbolic reasoning, other forms of AI that are less reliant on big data. The example I use is if I have 4 kids, if I drop a ball twice, the kids pretty quickly infer a general understanding of gravity. It's not big data. I don't have to send it 10,000 videos and train it. It's a principle that's inferred pretty quickly. There's a lot of advances in AI that are giving us the ability to infer and learn from very small data. And I think the combination of big data for the problems it's appropriate for, along with small data and data used appropriately, is the future. And that's the core of the paper we wrote and the ideas we're thinking about for the next book, which is changing some of that mindset.
One fascinating trend in the Technology Vision 2019 report was a trend, get to know me. Can you talk about the incredible importance that consumers and business buyers expect today of companies that they do business with, in terms of don't treat me like a number, understand my needs, and really proactively engage with me, and invite me to co-create value, because that's how you're going to establish trust and loyalty.
Yeah, I think if you think about the last 10 years, we've lived in the app economy. I think the big events that dictate where we are today were the invention of the smartphone 11 years ago and 4G communication technology around the same time, which gave us the ability, that gave us Google Maps, that gave us Pinterest, that gave us Airbnb, that gave us Uber. The app economy, and all the similar companies here, Flipkart and everything else that we talk about, that's the app economy. We're moving into a different world going forward, fueled by dark and these other technologies. We've got 5G around the corner. We've got virtual reality.
Is it around the corner? What do you mean by that?
5G will start rolling out. It depends on where you are in the world. I mean, people have been talking a little bit optimistically about how soon it'll come, but sometimes, depending on where you are in the world, you're going to be in the next several years, that you're going to start experiencing 5G and some incremental advances at least.
Focusing on AI and the impact as far as the Indian market is concerned, I caught up with Intel India head Nivruti Rai to understand the role of blockchain, AI, data as far as the Indian market is concerned. Have companies adopted enough? The concerns around the AI push, and the big takeaway, India is being a big talent hub for these MNCs. Intel also continues to really hire from here in India. Will that trend continue? Is it good news for engineering students passing out of colleges? Let's listen into this.
These technologies are nascent for the world. So it's not that just India is lagging, but I really believe that in this coming few years, which is like 1 to 3 years, India would have many AI solutions. Remember, AI has 2 aspects to it. One is creating algorithms for AI. The second is use cases for AI. So first, what India will see is many, many use cases of AI. I'm already seeing in the areas of health and agriculture and smart mobility, but you'll start seeing in the space of, fintech areas and supply chain areas. You'll see many, many AI use cases. What I feel that India needs to do a little bit more is in actually building the AI algorithms, the R&D part. The use will happen already.
Will happen automatically.
It's happening now as we speak. The challenge with use cases, how do we create money out of it? The business proposition. But that's happening already. In the next few years, you'll see plethora of AI startups with use cases. AI R&D will take some time, and that's where a lot of training and partnership and investment, industry and academia both. That I think we have to invest now to start. But I was very happy to meet a startup who's actually building fundamental, blockchain technology and AI technology.
It's natural and so many times in the questions that came to you from the audience about concerns about AI and adoption. But yes, you're right that while there is a tech adoption, there are of course concerns. But for an emerging country like India, to not only look at adoption but also ensuring mitigation in terms of repercussions on culture, social fabric, and also around entire data protection, there's a thin line there, right?
Yes. In this also, I'll like just to bring you to internet economy. Tell me how many issues we saw with internet, right? Access to, inappropriate data to our children. But what happened is, we started looking at, blockers. Hey, can I use a blocker for my home such that this inappropriate content will not be displayed in my laptops? So, it's not just us, again. The whole world is suffering from fake news. How many times we've seen, Trump's speech, which is not Trump's speech, right? So all of us are looking at the reds and the greens. I call it the greens are the values and the reds are the challenges, and opportunities. So all of us, including India, we need to work on both. Create the value out of green, but protect yourself from the red. So
no conference is really complete without the presence of entrepreneurs who ensure that they do bring a touch of technology, innovation at these events. My colleague Rahul Kumar caught up with a bunch of entrepreneurs to not only discuss about NTLF and the fact as to why they are here, but also about issues plaguing the startup ecosystem. Angel tax, has enough been done enough? Let's listen in to this conversation.
Not just the members of the NASSCOM, but also for the startups who are in the same space, in the technology space. This is a platform where we have about 2,000 key leaders from the business and strategy side who are present here. It's a great platform for startups to actually meet potential clients, to get feedback for their products. At the same time, to also network with these leaders and to build a good pipeline of healthy customers. So in terms of startups looking at revenues and in terms of exposure to meet new clients, this is a perfect event to be at.
Okay, just wanted to understand from you that artificial intelligence and virtual realities are, the buzzing words in technology field right now. You also have a product, based on these technologies. So what do you think is the future of these two technologies?
Well, I can speak on behalf of VR, which is where we've focused all our energies in the last 3 years. To be honest, the first 2 years were great because there's a lot of interest in VR, but we've been waiting for that day when VR will go mainstream. It's a very ambitious thing to say, and to be honest, my guess is as good as anyone else's. No one knows, but as far as AI is concerned, people are seeing real-world use cases, which is definitely a good thing.
Also, I think your product is based on artificial intelligence. So can you share the future of artificial intelligence in India?
Yes. So normally people are getting into this AI for this medical purpose. They're also getting into some machine learning where you can see the Alexa coming into place and so many other AIs present. So what we are trying to say is that in the VR world, the AI plays a better thing for the training sessions than for using it for gaming. So where a person coming like Sachin Tendulkar, or it might be Gary Krishnan coming and teaching you how to play cricket, or it might be Einstein coming and explaining his own theory of relativity for the students. So this gives you a much better understanding, the video interaction also, the video with the interaction. That's what is virtual reality all about. So the AI will play a major role in it.
So I just wanted to know from one of you that the issue of angel tax has been addressed by DPIIT. Although you are not happy with the the progress, it's a slow progress, but do you think it will be addressed in coming days?
Yeah, so as per the angel tax decision given by DPIIT yesterday, they waive off the angel tax for the particular particular time and particular number of crores. But I think if we want to grow the ecosystem of startup, then the angel tax must go away. That is the best benefit to all the ecosystem of India. So if you see the countries like Singapore, the Silicon Valley or US, they are much more startup friendly than the India. So I think this is a good decision, and the angel tax or any other taxes that should be minimized or to go to the next level.
So we saw Sachin Bansal investing in, Ola. So is it a very good sign because Indian entrepreneurs are starting to invest in, Indian startups? So is it a very good sign for you?
Definitely. So if you see the culture of Silicon Valley or Singapore compared to India, getting a funds is much more easier in that kind of countries. So if people like Sachin Bansal is investing into the Indian companies, that is a good hope for the Indian startup. I prefer all the Indian startups because they have a lot of good capabilities, a lot of good products right now. So I prefer these good news will affect all these startups into the India.
So wanted to understand from you, are you happy with the ecosystem provided by government right now for startups?
Well, there's a lot of things on paper. When we talk about ecosystem, yes, there is everything on paper. You go to Startup India, the website, or you look at the resources which they provide. Everything is there. But when it comes down, it's not just the government. Government is just a part of it. But then again, there are a lot of individuals. There's corporate companies which have to support the startups. So that is where the friction is. So when the government is talking about building a new India where it is startup friendly, then why I don't understand why we are having a discussion about a tax, about not incentivizing the investors who are taking the risk at the early stage, rather than looking at how can we actually support more people to actually invest into startups.
Seems like he did sure have fun exploring those new technologies. With that, we come to an end to this power-packed edition from NTLF, which we are calling the future of tech. It's been a beautiful experience to really bring you this power-packed shows. We hope you enjoyed watching them. News and updates continue on the other side of the break.